They say you never really know someone until you see them at their worst. I thought I knew Melissa after 15 years of marriage. Turns out, I knew nothing at all. My name is Eli Walker, and 3 months ago I was the chief operating officer of Meridian Tech Solutions, pulling down $200,000 a year, living in a 4-bedroom colonial in Westport, Connecticut. I had a beautiful wife, a brilliant 14-year-old daughter named Mia, and what I thought was a solid life built on mutual respect and shared dreams. That was before Charles Mercer decided I was expendable. Eli, we need to talk. Charles had called me into his corner office on a Tuesday morning in September. His mahogany desk was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the perfectly groomed face of a man who'd never missed a meal or worried about a mortgage payment. The board has made some difficult decisions about restructuring. I'd seen this coming. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, the way Charles avoided eye contact during meetings, the sudden exclusion from strategic planning sessions I'd been leading for 3 years. Let me guess, I said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. My position is being eliminated. It's nothing personal, Eli. You know how much I value your contributions. Charles straightened his $200 tie. But we need to streamline operations, focus on core competencies. Core competencies. I repeated the corporate buzzword with the appropriate amount of disdain. And my idea for the automated client management system, the one I pitched last month? Charles waved his hand dismissively. Too ambitious, too risky for our current market position. I nodded, playing the part of the disappointed but understanding employee. Inside, I was calculating severance packages and updating my resume. When's my last day? Today, actually. HR will handle the details. Security will escort you out after you pack your office. The security escort was Marcus, a decent guy who'd worked building security for 5 years. He looked embarrassed as he watched me box up my awards, family photos, and the small cactus Mia had given me for my birthday. This sucks, Mr. Walker, Marcus said quietly. Everyone knows you were the best thing about this place. Thanks, Marcus. Take care of yourself. The drive home was surreal. 15 years of climbing the corporate ladder, gone in a 20-minute conversation, but I wasn't devastated. I was angry. And in the back of my mind, an idea was forming. Julian Cross. I'd met Julian at a tech conference 6 months earlier. Billionaire entrepreneur, founder of 3 successful startups, and according to Forbes, the most innovative mind in automated business solutions. We'd talked for 2 hours over expensive whiskey about the future of client management systems. He'd given me his card and said, "Call me when you're ready to think bigger than Meridian." I pulled into our driveway and sat in my BMW for a moment, looking at the house Melissa and I had bought 8 years ago. The mortgage had 3 years left. Mia's college fund was fully funded. We had savings. We'd be fine while I figured out my next move. Melissa's Lexus wasn't in the garage. She was probably at her marketing job at Hartford Creative, or maybe having lunch with her friends. The house felt empty when I walked in, my footsteps echoing in the marble foyer. "Dad?" Mia's voice came from the kitchen. She was supposed to be at school. "Hey, kiddo, why aren't you at Westport High learning about the periodic table?" She looked up from her laptop, her dark hair falling across her face. She had Melissa's eyes, but my stubborn chin. Teacher Development Day. "Why are you home? Shouldn't you be making Charles Mercer's life easier?" Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. Charles and I had a parting of the ways. I'm officially unemployed as of about an hour ago. Mia closed her laptop and studied my face. "Are you okay? You don't look upset." "I'm not. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you. It forces you to take risks you wouldn't normally take." "Like what?" I pulled Julian Cross's business card from my wallet. It was slightly worn from the months I'd been carrying it. Like calling someone who might be interested in hearing about automated client management systems. That evening, Melissa came home at 7:30, later than usual. She found me in my study, working on my laptop. Mia told me what happened. She stood in the doorway, still wearing her work clothes. At 36, she was as beautiful as the day I'd met her. Blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite a full day at the office. "I'm sorry, Eli. I know how much that job meant to you." "It's fine. Actually, it might be the push I needed." She moved closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to start my own company. I've got an idea that could revolutionize how businesses manage client relationships. I'm calling Julian Cross tomorrow." Melissa's expression shifted slightly. Something flickered across her face that I couldn't quite identify. "Julian Cross? The billionaire?" We met at a conference. He was interested in my ideas. "Eli, honey, maybe you should take some time before making any big decisions. Getting fired is traumatic. You might not be thinking clearly. I looked at her carefully. I've never been thinking more clearly. This could be our chance to build something real, something that belongs to us. What about money? The mortgage, Mia's expenses? We have savings, and if Julian backs my idea, money won't be an issue. Melissa nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes, or what I thought was worry at the time. 2 days later, I was sitting in Julian Cross's Manhattan office, 50 floors above the city, pitching the idea that Charles Mercer had dismissed as too ambitious. Julian was exactly as I remembered him, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confidence that comes from turning every risk into a fortune. He listened without interruption as I explained my vision for an AI-driven client management system that could predict customer needs, automate relationship building, and increase retention rates by up to 40%. Interesting, he said when I finished. Very interesting. Charles Mercer passed on this? He said it was too risky. Julian laughed. Charles Mercer wouldn't recognize innovation if it bit him on his overpaid ass. How much do you need to build a prototype? $2 million for development, another $3 million for testing and initial marketing. I'll give you $25 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. $25 million? Eli, you're thinking too small. This isn't just a client management system. This is the future of business relationships. I want exclusive rights to invest. Full partnership. We'll call it Crosswalk Solutions. Crosswalk? Cross and Walker. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? I walked out of Julian's office 3 hours later with a signed letter of intent and a check for $5 million as a good faith payment. The rest would be transferred once the legal paperwork was complete. I called Melissa from the car. Honey, we need to celebrate tonight. Something amazing just happened. What kind of amazing? The kind that changes everything. I'll tell you when I get home. But when I got home, Melissa wasn't there. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was empty except for Mia, who was doing homework in her room. Where's your mom? She said she had to run an errand. She seemed weird about it. I found Melissa in our bedroom at 9:30, fresh from a shower, wearing a robe I didn't recognize. Where were you? Grocery shopping. Then I stopped by Tara's house. She's having problems with her marriage. Tara Morrison was Melissa's best friend, a real estate agent who lived 3 streets over. They'd been close since college. Well, wait until you hear my news. I sat on the bed and told her about Julian, about the $25 million, about Crosswalk Solutions. Melissa's reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of excitement, I saw something that looked like panic flash across her face. $25 million? Eli, that's incredible. We did it, Mel. We actually did it. She forced a smile. I'm so proud of you. But something in her voice didn't match her words. That night, I lay awake listening to Melissa breathe beside me, thinking about Julian's offer, about the future we were going to build. I was too excited to sleep. At 2 a.m., Melissa's phone buzzed on her nightstand. A text message. The screen lit up briefly, and I saw the sender's name, Charles. Why would Charles Mercer be texting my wife at 2 a.m? I waited until Melissa was deeply asleep, then carefully picked up her phone. It was password protected, but I knew the code. Her birthday. The text from Charles read, Can't stop thinking about tonight. When can I see you again? I scrolled up through their message history, my hands shaking as I read months of conversations. Private conversations, plans to meet, complaints about me. Eli suspects nothing. He's too focused on his stupid business ideas. Can't wait to feel you again. Hotel tomorrow at lunch? I think I'm falling in love with you. I set the phone back on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. My wife of 15 years was having an affair with the man who'd just fired me. The man who'd called my ideas too ambitious was sleeping with my wife and apparently had been for months. I got up quietly and went to my study. I needed to think. I needed to plan. Because if Charles Mercer thought he could destroy my career and steal my wife, he was about to learn just how wrong he could be. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Instead, I sat in my study, staring out the window at our perfectly manicured neighborhood, processing the reality that my marriage was a lie and my former boss was the reason why. But here's the thing about betrayal. Once the initial shock wears off, it clarifies everything. All those late nights Melissa claimed she was working, the mysterious phone calls she took in other rooms, the way she'd grown distant over the past 6 months, the lack of interest in my career problems. It all made sense now, and Charles. The snake had been playing a long game. Fire me, isolate me, probably planning to swoop in as Melissa's shoulder to cry on when our marriage inevitably fell apart. Except he hadn't counted on Julian Cross and $25 million changing the equation. At 6 a.m., I made coffee and started planning my revenge. The first rule of effective revenge is patience. The second rule is making sure your enemy destroys himself. I wasn't going to confront Melissa or Charles directly. That would be emotional, messy, and ultimately unsatisfying. Instead, I was going to let them think they were winning while I systematically dismantled their lives. Melissa came downstairs at 7, dressed for work in a black suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Couldn't sleep? Too excited about the Julian Cross deal." She nodded absently, checking her phone, probably looking for messages from Charles. "I'm meeting with lawyers today to set up the company structure. Then I need to find office space." "That's nice, honey." She wasn't really listening. "I was thinking we should have a party, celebrate the new business, invite all our friends." This got her attention. "A party? Why not? We have something to celebrate. I'll call the Morrisons, the Hendersons, maybe some people from your work. And Charles, of course. I should thank him for firing me. If he hadn't, Julian never would have offered me $25 million. Melissa's coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "You want to invite Charles?" "Absolutely. I owe him a debt of gratitude. Without him, none of this would have happened." I watched her face carefully. She was trapped between not wanting Charles at our house and not being able to explain why without revealing their affair. I don't think Charles would be comfortable coming here. You know, after the firing. Nonsense. Charles is a professional. I'm sure he'll be happy to see me succeed. Melissa left for work without kissing me goodbye. She used to kiss me goodbye every morning for 15 years. The affair had changed her routine, and she didn't even realize it. At 9 a.m., I called my friend Pete Rodriguez. Pete was an IT specialist who'd worked with me at Meridian before starting his own consulting business. More importantly, Pete was a wizard with computers and had a flexible relationship with privacy laws. "Eli, I heard about Meridian. That sucks, man. Actually, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I need a favor, Pete. A big one. Name it. I need you to do some research on Charles Mercer. Financial records, phone records, email accounts, social media, everything you can find legally." Legally being a relative term? Let's say I need information that might be publicly available to someone who knew where to look. Pete was quiet for a moment. "This is about more than getting fired, isn't it?" "Much more. Give me 48 hours. My next call was to Gina Martinez, the best divorce attorney in Connecticut. I'd met Gina at various business functions over the years. She had a reputation for being ruthless and creative. "Eli Walker, I heard about Meridian. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm calling because I need legal advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to protect their assets before filing for divorce, what steps would they need to take?" "Hypothetically, they would need to document all marital assets, secure separate accounts for any new income, and gather evidence of any infidelity that might affect the settlement." "And if this hypothetical person had just come into a significant amount of money?" "They would want to make sure that money was clearly separate property, not marital property." "When did you say this hypothetical windfall occurred?" "Yesterday." "Then your hypothetical person is in good shape. What kind of evidence are we talking about?" "Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, the usual." "Bring me everything you have. And Eli, stop saying hypothetically. We both know this is real." I spent the afternoon setting up new bank accounts and transferring the $5 million deposit from Julian into an account with only my name on it. Then I drove to Stamford and rented a small office space for Crosswalk Solutions. Nothing fancy, just a place to work and meet with Julian's team. That evening, Melissa came home late again. "Sorry, honey, Tara needed to talk. Her husband found out about her affair." The irony was so thick I could taste it. "That's terrible. What's she going to do?" "She's not sure. She loves her husband, but she also has feelings for this other man." "What did you tell her?" Melissa sat down across from me at the kitchen table. "I told her she needed to decide what she really wanted. You can't have both." "Good advice. What do you think she'll choose?" "I don't know. It's complicated when you develop feelings for someone else. Sometimes you don't realize what's missing in your marriage until someone else shows you." I nodded sympathetically. It must be hard to live a lie, to look someone in the eye every day knowing you're betraying them. Something flickered across Melissa's face. "Yes, I imagine it would be very hard." The next morning, Pete called with his research. "Charles Mercer is a piece of work, Eli. You want the financial stuff first, or the personal stuff?" "Personal. He's been married 3 times, divorced twice for adultery. His current wife, Patricia, is wife number 3. They've been married for 8 years, but according to his credit card records, Charles has been very busy. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry purchases that don't match his wife's taste based on her social media posts." "How many women?" At least 4 that I can document over the past 2 years. Your wife appears to be the most recent. My hands clenched into fists. What else? Financially, he's leveraged to the hilt. Big house, expensive cars, country club memberships. But most of it's financed. He's been borrowing against his Meridian stock options to maintain his lifestyle. Anything illegal? Not illegal, but questionable. He's been steering Meridian contracts to companies owned by his college buddies. Nothing technically wrong, but it could be embarrassing if it became public. Send me everything, Pete. Bills, photos, documentation, everything. You got it. And Eli? Whatever you're planning, I never had this conversation. That afternoon, I met with Julian Cross to finalize our partnership agreement. His lawyers had worked overnight to prepare the contracts. $25 million, Eli. 50-50 partnership in Crosswalk Solutions. You handle development and operations, I handle funding and strategic partnerships. What's the catch? Julian smiled. No catch, but I do have one condition. Which is? I want Charles Mercer to know that I'm backing you. I want him to know that the idea he rejected is about to make us both very rich. Any particular reason? Charles Mercer has been spreading rumors about your competence in industry circles. Apparently, he's been telling people that firing you was necessary because you had unrealistic ideas and poor judgment. My vision went red around the edges. He's trying to blacklist me. Exactly. So I want him to watch while we prove him wrong. I want him to see your success every day and know that he could have been part of it. I signed the contracts with a steady hand, but inside I was burning with rage. Charles wasn't content with stealing my wife. He was trying to destroy my entire career. But 2 could play that game. That evening, I told Melissa about the finalized partnership. Julian wants to announce the deal publicly. Press release, industry publications, maybe even a feature in Forbes. That's wonderful, Eli. You deserve the recognition. He also wants to host a launch party. Something big. All the major players in the industry. When? Next month. And Melissa? He specifically asked me to invite Charles. He wants to publicly thank him for creating the opportunity. Melissa went very pale. What did you tell him? I said I'd be happy to invite Charles. After all, I owe him everything. That night, I pretended to sleep while Melissa sent frantic text messages to Charles. I couldn't see the messages, but I could see the glow of her phone screen and hear the soft tapping of her fingers on the keyboard. The next morning, I put the second phase of my plan into motion. I called Tara Morrison. Tara, it's Eli Walker. I hope you don't mind me calling directly. Of course not, Eli. Melissa told me about your new business. Congratulations. Thank you. Actually, I'm calling because Melissa mentioned you're going through a difficult time. I wanted you to know that if you need someone to talk to, someone objective, I'm here. There was a long pause. That's very kind of you. I know what it's like when marriages get complicated. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who understands. Eli, I don't think I should... No pressure, Tara. I just want you to know that I'm here if you need a friend. After I hung up, I smiled. Tara Morrison was about to become a very valuable ally, whether she knew it or not. Because the thing about affairs is that they create a web of lies and secrets. And webs, no matter how carefully constructed, always have weak points. I was about to start pulling threads. Tara Morrison called me back 3 hours later. Eli, I've been thinking about what you said, about needing someone objective to talk to. Of course. Would you like to meet for coffee? Could we? I know it's awkward, given that you're Melissa's husband, but I really don't have anyone else I can trust with this. We met at a Starbucks in Norwalk, far enough from Westport that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. Tara looked terrible. Her usually perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook as she held her coffee cup. I don't know how to do this, Eli. I've never been in a situation like this before. Take your time. Sometimes it helps just to say it out loud. I've been having an affair. The words came out in a rush. For 6 months, with someone I work with. And I think I'm in love with him, but I also love my husband and I don't know what to do. I nodded sympathetically. That must be incredibly difficult. Does your husband suspect? I don't think so, but I'm terrible at lying. I keep expecting him to notice that I'm different. What about the other man? Is he married? Tara's face crumpled. Yes, and that's the worst part. I'm not just betraying my husband, I'm helping him betray his wife. She's a good person, Eli. She doesn't deserve this. Do you know his wife? Not well, but we've met at company functions. She's beautiful and smart, and completely trusting. If she knew what we were doing, it would destroy her. I leaned forward, projecting concern and understanding. Tara, can I ask you something personal? Of course. How did it start? Affairs don't usually happen overnight. He was going through a difficult time at work. His company was downsizing, and he was under a lot of stress. We started talking, just as friends. Then we started meeting for drinks after work. One thing led to another. And now? Now I'm lying to everyone. My husband, my friends, his wife. I hate myself for it, but I can't seem to stop. I reached across the table and touched her hand. Tara, you're not a bad person. You're just in a bad situation. But you need to make a choice. You can't live like this indefinitely. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. I know. But how do I choose between two people I love? Maybe the question isn't who you love more. Maybe the question is who you can build a future with. We talked for another hour. Tara told me about her guilt, her fear of being discovered, her confusion about her feelings. She also told me details about her affair that I filed away for later use. Most importantly, she told me that she'd been confiding in Melissa about everything. Melissa has been so supportive. She never judges me. She just listens and gives me advice. What kind of advice? She tells me to follow my heart. She says life is short, and I deserve to be happy. Interesting advice from a woman who was having her own affair. When we parted, Tara hugged me. Thank you for listening, Eli. You're a good friend. Melissa is lucky to have you. We're lucky to have each other, I replied. That evening, I had dinner with Mia while Melissa worked late again. Dad, are you and Mom okay? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask? You seem different lately. Both of you. Like you're pretending to be happy. My daughter was too perceptive for her own good. We're fine, kiddo. Just dealing with some changes. My new business, your mom's job, adult stuff. Are you going to get divorced? The question hit me like a physical blow. What makes you ask that? Half the kids at school have divorced parents, and you and Mom don't talk to each other anymore. Not really. You talk at each other, but you don't listen. I sat down next to her on the couch. Mia, I want you to know that whatever happens between your mom and me, it has nothing to do with you. We both love you more than anything in the world. That's what all parents say before they get divorced. Some things are more complicated than they appear from the outside, but I promise you, we'll figure it out. Will you tell me the truth when you do figure it out? I'll tell you as much truth as I can. She nodded solemnly. Okay, but Dad, whatever's going on, don't let it make you mean. I've seen what divorce does to some of my friends' parents. They get so angry that they forget how to be good people. I promise I won't forget how to be a good person. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was a promise I could keep. The next day, Pete called with more information. I've got Charles Mercer's hotel records for the past 6 months. He's been busy, 4 different women, including your wife. But here's the interesting part. He's been using the same hotel for all of them. The Marriott in Stamford? Bingo. And get this, he's got a corporate account there. Meridian pays for his rooms. He's been charging his affairs to the company. That's embezzlement. Technically, it's misuse of corporate funds. Not criminal, but definitely grounds for termination and possibly a civil lawsuit. What else? I've been monitoring his email and social media accounts. He's been very indiscreet. Lots of photos, messages, even some videos that his wife definitely hasn't seen. Send me everything. Already on its way. But Eli, be careful with this stuff. Some of it could be considered revenge porn if you use it wrong. I'm not planning to post anything online, Pete. I have something much more elegant in mind. That afternoon, I drove to the Marriott in Stamford and had a conversation with the hotel manager, a woman named Rebecca Chen who'd gone to business school with my cousin. Eli, how nice to see you. What brings you here? I'm doing some research on corporate expense fraud. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to help me understand how someone might misuse a corporate account. Rebecca's expression became serious. What kind of misuse? Hypothetically, if someone was using a corporate account for personal expenses, how would that show up in your records? Well, we keep detailed records of all corporate bookings. Room service, incidentals, everything. If someone was using a corporate account inappropriately, it would be easy to document. And if someone wanted to request those records? For a legitimate business purpose, we'd cooperate fully with any investigation. I left the hotel with Rebecca's business card and a promise that she'd be available if I needed documentation of Charles's activities. That evening, Melissa came home at 9:30, later than usual. Sorry, honey, Tara needed to talk again. She's really struggling with her situation. What did you tell her? I told her she needed to be honest with herself about what she really wants. And what does she really want? Melissa sat down across from me, studying my face. I think she wants to be with the other man, but she's afraid of hurting people. Sometimes hurting people is unavoidable. Sometimes the truth is more important than protecting feelings. Do you really believe that? I believe that lies always come out eventually, and when they do, the damage is usually worse than if the truth had been told from the beginning. Melissa nodded slowly. You're probably right. I know I'm right. The next morning, I implemented the next phase of my plan. I called Patricia Mercer, Charles's wife. Mrs. Mercer, this is Eli Walker. I used to work with your husband at Meridian. Oh, yes, Eli. Charles mentioned you. I'm sorry about your job. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted to thank Charles for firing me. It led to an incredible opportunity. I don't understand. I've just signed a $25 million deal with Julian Cross. If Charles hadn't fired me, I never would have been available for this opportunity. There was a long pause. $25 million? I know it sounds incredible. I'm having a launch party next month to celebrate. I'd love for you and Charles to come. I want to publicly thank him for making this possible. That's very gracious of you, Eli. Charles is a good man, Mrs. Mercer. You're lucky to have him. Another pause. Yes, I am lucky. After I hung up, I smiled. Patricia Mercer was now wondering why her husband had never mentioned my success. She was probably also wondering why Charles had been so secretive about his reasons for firing me. Seeds of doubt, and that's all I needed to plant. That afternoon, I met with Gina Martinez to review the evidence I'd gathered. This is impressive, Eli. Text messages, hotel records, financial documentation. Charles Mercer has been very sloppy. What's my next step? We file for divorce citing adultery. In Connecticut, that affects the property settlement. Melissa won't get half of everything if she's been unfaithful. What about the $25 million? That's separate property since you acquired it after the affair began and before you were aware of it. She has no claim to it. And Charles? Charles is more complicated. You can't sue him for alienation of affection in Connecticut, but you can make his life very difficult in other ways. Such as? Well, if someone were to provide Meridian's board with documentation of his misuse of corporate funds, that would be terrible for Charles. Devastating. He'd be fired, possibly sued, definitely blacklisted in the industry. And if someone were to provide his wife with evidence of his affairs, that would be terrible for his marriage. What about criminal charges? For the corporate expense fraud? Possible, but unlikely unless the amounts are substantial. But civil liability? Absolutely. I left Gina's office with a clear plan of action. It was time to start applying pressure. That evening, I found Melissa in our bedroom, packing a suitcase. Going somewhere? She looked up, startled. Just an overnight trip for work. Client meeting in Boston. Which client? Hartford Insurance. We're pitching a new campaign. I nodded. When will you be back? Tomorrow evening. I checked her suitcase while she was in the bathroom. Lingerie that I'd never seen before. Expensive perfume. A new dress with the tags still on it. Melissa wasn't going to Boston for work. She was going somewhere with Charles. Perfect. That gave me 24 hours to set the final pieces of my plan in motion. After Melissa left, I called Pete. I need you to track a cell phone tomorrow. Can you do that? Whose phone? My wife's. I need to know exactly where she goes and who she's with. That's illegal, Eli. Not if she's using a phone on my family plan and I'm paying the bill. Technically true, but Pete, I need this, please. Okay, but I was never involved and you never got this information from me. Understood. The trap was set. Tomorrow I would spring it, and Charles Mercer's life would begin to fall apart. Pete called me at noon the next day. Your wife's phone is pinging from the Ritz-Carlton in Manhattan. She's been there since 10 a.m. Is she alone? Her phone is the only one I'm tracking, but the room is registered to Charles Mercer, corporate credit card. Perfect. Can you get me the room number? Already got it. Room 2847, presidential suite. I hung up and called the Ritz-Carlton. I'd like to send flowers to one of your guests. Charles Mercer, room 2847. Certainly, sir. What would you like the card to say? Congratulations on your new relationship. Signed, a friend. And what name should I put the delivery under? Eli Walker. Next, I called Patricia Mercer. Mrs. Mercer, this is Eli Walker again. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all, Eli. I wanted to follow up on the party invitation. Will you and Charles be able to attend? I'd love to, but I'm not sure about Charles. He's been working so much lately. He's actually in Boston today for business. Boston? That's interesting. I thought Meridian's biggest clients were all in New York. They are, but he said this was a special project, very confidential. Well, I hope he's not working too hard. A man needs to spend time with his wife. Yes, he does. After I hung up, I smiled. Patricia now knew that Charles had lied to her about where he was going. She was probably wondering why. At 3 p.m., I drove to Manhattan. The Ritz-Carlton was busy, full of tourists and business travelers. I took the elevator to the 28th floor and walked down the hall until I found room 2847. I knocked on the door. Charles answered, wearing a hotel bathrobe. His face went white when he saw me. Eli, what are you doing here? I came to thank you in person for firing me. May I come in? This isn't a good time. I insist. I pushed past him into the suite. Melissa was sitting on the bed, wrapped in a sheet, her hair disheveled. She looked like she was going to be sick. Hello, honey. How's the client meeting going? Melissa couldn't speak. She just stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. Charles tried to regain control of the situation. Eli, I know how this looks, but it looks like you're sleeping with my wife in a hotel suite that you're charging to Meridian's corporate account. Is that not how it looks? You need to leave, now. Actually, Charles, I think you need to listen, because I have a story to tell you, and it's a really good one. I sat down in the chair across from the bed, making myself comfortable. 3 days ago, I signed a $25 million partnership deal with Julian Cross. You know Julian, don't you? Brilliant businessman, Forbes' list of most innovative entrepreneurs. Ring any bells? Charles said nothing, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. Julian was very interested in my automated client management system. You remember that system, don't you, Charles? The one you called too ambitious, too risky. Eli, please. Julian thought it was brilliant. Revolutionary, he called it. Worth $25 million of his money. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. But here's the really interesting part. Julian told me that you've been spreading rumors about me in the industry, telling people I was incompetent, unreliable, poor judgment. I turned back to face them. That made me curious, Charles. Why would you fire me, steal my wife, and then try to destroy my reputation? It seemed like too much. Charles found his voice. You're delusional, Eli. Melissa and I are having an affair. Yes, I know. I've known for weeks. I have the text messages, the hotel records, the credit card receipts. I even have photos. Melissa finally spoke. Photos? I pulled out my phone and showed them several pictures I'd taken through the hotel room window from the building across the street. Pete had positioned himself there with a telephoto lens. Smile, you two. You're going to be famous. Charles lunged toward me, but I stepped aside. He stumbled and fell against the dresser. I wouldn't do that, Charles. Assault charges would just make this messier. What do you want? Melissa asked. I want justice, and I want both of you to understand the consequences of your choices. I sat back down and pulled out a manila envelope. Charles, these are copies of your corporate expense reports for the past 6 months. Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts, all charged to Meridian, all for your various affairs. Yes, Charles, I know about the others, too. His face went gray. I've calculated the total misappropriation of corporate funds at approximately $47,000. Not enough for criminal charges, but definitely enough for termination and civil liability. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I have hotel security footage, credit card records, even testimony from some of your other women. They were very chatty once they realized they weren't the only ones. I turned to Melissa. And darling wife, these are copies of our prenuptial agreement. Remember that? The one your father insisted on because he was worried about gold diggers? The one that says adultery voids your claim to half our assets? Melissa's face crumpled. Eli, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, for months. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build a life for our family, you were sleeping with my boss. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Melissa? Explain it to me. She started crying. I felt lonely. You were always working, always focused on business. Charles paid attention to me. He made me feel special. So you destroyed our marriage because you felt neglected? I didn't mean to destroy anything. I thought you'd never find out. And then what? You just keep lying to me for the rest of our lives? Charles tried to interject. Eli, we can work this out. We're all adults here. You're right, Charles. We are adults, which is why I'm going to handle this like an adult. I stood up and walked toward the door. Melissa, I'll be filing for divorce on Monday. You can keep the house until it sells, but you'll need to find your own place after that. I've already moved the money from our joint accounts into separate accounts, which I'm legally entitled to do. What about Mia? Mia will live with me. I'm sure the court will be very interested in your fitness as a mother, given the circumstances. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away. You threw her away when you chose to have an affair. I turned to Charles. As for you, Charles, I've prepared a little presentation for Meridian's board of directors. Hotel receipts, expense reports, documentation of your corporate account misuse. I'm sure they'll find it fascinating. You're destroying my career. No, Charles, you destroyed your career. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. I opened the door and paused. Oh, and one more thing. Julian Cross is announcing our partnership at a press conference next week. He specifically asked me to mention how grateful I am to you for firing me. He wants the whole industry to know that you passed on a $25 million opportunity. Eli, wait. But I was already walking down the hall toward the elevator. Behind me, I could hear Melissa crying and Charles shouting, but I didn't look back. The first phase of my revenge was complete, but I was just getting started. The press conference was scheduled for the following Wednesday at Julian Cross's Manhattan offices. By Tuesday evening, the story had already leaked to the trade publications. Former Meridian COO signs $25 million deal after being fired for unrealistic ideas. Julian Crossback's automated client management system rejected by Meridian. Crosswalk Solutions, the startup that almost wasn't. I was sitting in my new office reading the coverage online when Gina Martinez called. Eli, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Melissa hired Richard Blackwood. Richard Blackwood was the most expensive divorce attorney in Connecticut. He specialized in protecting wealthy wives from vindictive husbands. Let me guess. She's claiming I hid assets and that the $25 million should be considered marital property. Exactly. She's also claiming emotional abuse and saying that you've been planning this divorce for months. Can she prove any of that? She doesn't have to prove it. She just has to create enough doubt to get a sympathetic judge. What's our counter strategy? We go nuclear. We present all the evidence of her affair, Charles's corporate expense fraud, and we paint her as a gold digger who destroyed her marriage for money. Do it. That evening, I was having dinner with Mia when Melissa came home. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red from crying, and she'd lost weight. Eli, we need to talk. I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please, just 5 minutes. I looked at Mia. Kiddo, why don't you go upstairs and work on your homework? Mia nodded and left the room, but I could tell she was listening from the stairway. I made a mistake, Eli. A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. No, Melissa, we can't. I'll end it with Charles. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't destroy our family. You destroyed our family the first time you slept with him. It was just closeness, Eli. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything. It meant that 15 years of marriage wasn't enough to keep you faithful. It meant that our daughter's stability wasn't important enough to keep you honest. Melissa sat down across from me, tears streaming down her face. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you. But I love you, Eli. I've always loved you. You have a funny way of showing love. I was confused. Charles made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. It was like being young again. And what about now? How do you feel now? I feel like I've destroyed the best thing in my life. I studied her face, looking for any sign of sincerity. All I saw was desperation. Melissa, do you know what the worst part is? Tell me. The worst part isn't that you had an affair. The worst part is that you're only sorry because you got caught. That's not true, isn't it? If I hadn't found out, would you have ended it with Charles? She didn't answer. Would you have kept lying to me, kept sleeping with him, kept pretending to be a loving wife while you were sleeping with my boss? Eli, please, answer the question, Melissa. She looked down at her hands. I don't know. I do. You would have kept lying until Charles left his wife for you, or until you found someone better, or until I found out. You never would have chosen to be honest. You're right. I'm a coward. I'm selfish. I'm everything you think I am. But I'm also the mother of your child and the woman you married. That has to count for something. It counted for everything, until you threw it away. The next morning, Charles called me. Eli, we need to meet. I don't think so, Charles. Please, just hear me out. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop in Stamford. Charles looked as bad as Melissa. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, and he had the desperate look of a man watching his life fall apart. I got fired yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You planned this whole thing. I didn't plan anything, Charles. I just documented what you'd already done. The board called it gross misconduct. They're demanding I repay the $47,000 in misappropriated funds. That seems fair. Patricia filed for divorce. She's taking the house, the cars, half my retirement account. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. Charles leaned forward, his voice desperate. I'll give you anything you want. Money, references, a public apology, just call off the dogs. What dogs? Julian Cross has been calling every major company in the industry, telling them about my poor judgment in firing you. I can't get an interview anywhere. That's unfortunate. You're destroying my life. No, Charles, you destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. What about Melissa? Are you going to destroy her too? Melissa destroyed herself. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. Charles sat back in his chair, defeated. What do you want from me, Eli? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that you can't steal a man's wife and destroy his career without paying a price. I never tried to destroy your career. You spread rumors about my competence. You tried to blacklist me in the industry. I was protecting Meridian's reputation. You were covering your own ass. You knew that if I succeeded somewhere else, it would make you look incompetent for firing me. Charles stared into his coffee cup. You're right. I was scared that you'd prove me wrong. And now I have? Yes, now you have. The press conference the next day was a triumph. Julian Cross introduced me as one of the most innovative minds in business automation, and announced that Crosswalk Solutions had already signed 3 major clients based on preliminary demonstrations. The reporters asked about my departure from Meridian, and I gave them the story they wanted. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you. It forces you to take risks you wouldn't normally take. I'm grateful to Charles Mercer for giving me that opportunity. The irony was perfect. By publicly thanking Charles for firing me, I was reminding everyone that he'd passed on a $25 million opportunity. After the press conference, Julian pulled me aside. Brilliant performance, Eli. Charles Mercer will never live this down. That's the idea. What's next for you? I finished destroying the people who betrayed me. Then I build the best client management company in the world. In that order? Absolutely in that order. That evening, I came home to find Melissa packing boxes in the living room. I'm moving out, she said without looking up. Where are you going? My sister's house in Hartford, until I can find my own place. What about Mia? She's staying with you. She made that very clear. I found Mia in her room, doing homework. You okay, kiddo? I'm angry at Mom. You have a right to be angry. She broke our family for a stupid reason. Yes, she did. Are you going to be okay, Dad? I'm going to be better than